Hello, and welcome to the Metaphysical Universe, where we dive deep into all things spiritual and metaphysical. Today, we'll be talking with Rachel Fiorentino. She's a renowned tarot card reader who bridges the gap between science, self development, and spirituality through the utilization of tarot. She's a super down to earth, non woo woo, intuitive reader who uses all of her skills as a business manager, nurse, certified life coach, and certified law of attraction coach to explore all the badassery that you can have in your life. So, today we will be talking about the relationship between the major arcana of the tarot and the fool's or hero's journey. So let's get right into this. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rachel. I am so excited to have you here and to talk about all the things that we're going to talk about. I'm not going to give it away yet because we're going to jump right into it. But first of all, please, Rachel, tell me a little bit about you and what you do, and then we'll get into like how you got into all of this.
Yeah. So I'm Rachel Fiorentino. I've been a tarot reader now for about 30 years. I know I didn't think I was old enough to do anything for 30 years. So I started off kind of listening to old studio radio and stuff about like the tarot readings and psychics and mediums, and I just became really fascinated by it at a young age. And then I got my first deck at 16 and ended up going professional at 18. I just fell in love
Wow.
with everything there is to do with the tarot cards. I just absolutely love it.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my God. And
Yeah,
that is such a young age to really get going with those things.
it is. It is. I used to do like all the psychic fairs and, going to all the different places and, in the country with all that. And I was always like the youngest one. Here I am, like 18, trying to give people advice about their life. And I'm like, I still hadn't lived life very much either.
Right. Yeah,
So,
totally, totally. Oh my God. Oh my God. So now you had followed these things and expressed interest in these things at a young age. Now, were you noticing like that kind of phenomenon yourself? Like, were you noticing different spiritual experiences or metaphysical experiences in your life?
well, I think I noticed more of like that healing side that
Mm.
I was helping people do a lot of the healing side of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that had to do with even, some people that have passed on will creep in there. It's not my forte is not being a medium, but those spirits do come in every now and then and, and like to take up space. So when that's happened and I'm able to like connect, a loved one with somebody here through the cards. It's like it's just such a magical, metaphysical experience to be a part of that and
Oh
like help
God.
people with that. So,
Yeah, I can
hmm
imagine. I can imagine. What is
hmm
that like for you when that happens? Like, I mean, clearly you're using a physical instrument, right? You
hmm
know, the cards and sharing the information that's coming through, but how are you aware and know that you're picking up this information about, a relative coming through or something like that? What are you experiencing in that moment?
So a couple of different things that I experience when that happens is like it's the only words I've been able to figure out how to say is that it's a sense of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I just know that this is like who it is, or I just know that this is the experience, or this is what it is. But there's like no way I should know this. I just know it is the only way I can just say it. And then I also there's a lot of like clues that I have to kind of figure out what they mean. So, for example, I might kind of be seeing like the universe might give me little clues like, okay, it's something you wear, it's a bright color, it's got a string attached to it, and I have to take that and convert it into my human existence and try to go like, oh. are you talking about a hoodie? Are you talking about like a red hoodie? You know? And so it's kind of like breadcrumbs that I have to try to figure out too sometimes. So it's kind of a mixture of both.
Well, I love that. I love that you explain it that way because so many people, in the esoteric community will say, "Well, this is claircognizance," or whatever, and they won't
Hmm.
they won't explain what that means. And the way that you like break that down right now into such like a simple understanding of this is what I'm actually going through,
Hmm.
and not making a mystical thing, but really breaking it down to this is my experience as I
Hmm.
observe this experience. This is what I am picking up. And so when you say it that way, it really helps to validate my own experiences, because then I'm like, oh yeah, like that happens to us all the time, right?
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
we have this, knowing. And I think especially stereotypically as women, we
Hmm.
tend to be predisposed to these types of knowing. I know that I've driven like my ex-husband crazy with like, the amount of knowing experiences that I've had. And then he's just like, well, I'm not going to validate that, because if you can't back that up with like facts, then, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, all right, well,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
you. It's going to happen to you. So,
But
but
thank you
but the
for saying
way,
that.
yeah, the
Hmm.
way that you share that, and then also with the breadcrumbs, I mean, that's exactly, see this, I teach these things too, and helping people to understand like tangible things like that, like,
Hmm.
you'll receive information in a way that it's like, pieces of imagery or little pieces of something that you hear or experience or whatever, that you have to like put it together. And just like with the
Hmm.
knowingness too, it's just like, you just know, I can't explain
Hmm.
how or why I know what
Exactly.
I know. It's just there, you
Hmm.
know and so, but I specifically love like the breakdown of the hoodie, because that explains a
Hmm.
lot, because maybe
Hmm.
you're not going to get like, it's a red hoodie, but you're going to
Hmm.
get like little pieces of it, and you're learning how to like put it all together. So,
Hmm.
thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and part of my goal as a reader is to like show everybody that everybody can do this. Like I want the tarot cards to be just as mainstream as, going to a yoga class. Like, oh, you got a new job you're going to? What card did you get before you went to your interview? I want it to be just as mainstream. And so I think kind of my job in this world is to be able to kind of, bring all of these esoteric ideas and make them as simple as we can
Mm.
so everybody can learn that they can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. You're speaking my language, and I'm exactly the same way too, because I find it so frustrating that these words, these esoteric words and concepts, don't come with a natural amount of understanding, like,
Hmm.
what is a higher self? What are the Akashic records? What are these? It's like, you hear them,
Hmm.
but you don't really know what those things are. And so we're making our best guess, but nobody's really like breaking it down and being like,
Hmm.
this is what it really is. And
Yeah.
so I love that you're doing that. And I love that you're helping people to understand these things, because then, like you said, it's going to be something that they're going to be able to use tangibly on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So I assume then that you use the cards on a daily basis or close to?
Probably close to, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think it's taken me years to kind of read for myself. And I think
Mm.
because, we're always so biased. And
Yeah.
so, but the best advice I got from somebody was if you're reading for yourself, actually say it out loud like you're telling it to somebody across the table from you. And so
Mm.
now when I read the cards, I'll like say it out loud. I'll say it like I would be saying it to somebody else. And then I stop and listen to myself going, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty good advice. I better listen to that."
Do you record yourself when you're doing it so that you can watch it back and Like,
I haven't, but that's a good idea. That's a
yeah.
really good idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
because
you
there
for
may
that.
be things that, you're not catching just because you're in the moment of saying.
Hmm.
I mean, it's kind of hard to be like the sender of the information and the receiver of the information at the same time, right? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
you know, having that recording will allow you to just be the sender of the information without having to receive it, and then you could watch it and then just receive the information.
That is really smart. That's a great idea. I'm going to do that
Yeah,
next
yeah. Well,
time.
let me know
Yeah,
how it
I love that.
goes. I'm
Yeah, thank
excited
you.
about
Thank
that.
you.
So I know that you had talked a bit about like your own, conflicts with like intuition and
Mhm.
science. And I'm kind of
Yeah.
interested in that, as well as how that kind of pulled you into the realm of working with, philosophy and psychology and
Mhm.
Jung. So tell me kind
Mhm.
of about all those things.
Yeah, so I think kind of in my journey of like doing the psychic fairs and things like
Mm,
that, I kind of always felt like you kind of mentioned like here, like I wasn't doing them correctly in this. Nobody was really saying that, but like
right.
there would be moments of like, I'm a nurse as well, and so people are like, oh, you've got a second job, you must not really manifest correctly and things like that. And so like I would get some weird feedback and like so for a long time I felt like I either had to be a full-time tarot reader
Mm,
or or I'm not good enough. So it
right.
kind of goes back and forth like that, right? And I mean we kind of do that with a lot of things. But so what I kind of was realizing is that um, it's not that I'm wrong. It's just that I think that there's more that we can utilize with the cards.
Mm.
And so that's when I ended up. I ended up getting certified in life coaching and certified in law of attraction to be able to go like okay, we're utilizing such a great tool, but how do we make it better? How do we, take it to that next level? And then through the life coaching, I was able to start getting into really deeper meanings of the cards and the psychology and philosophy of bridging these two together. And that's when I kind of realized that um, that a lot of these same concepts in psychology are all in the tarot cards as well.
Mhm.
So, the kind of the concept of Jung's individuation. So it's the idea of having all of these pieces kind of brought in together and making you whole. That's what the major arcana cards are doing as well. It's like here's all these little aspects of what we're doing to make us whole. Trying to reach that universe card or that world card, whatever deck you use. So that's been kind of part of it. And then also learning about Joseph Campbell's and the hero's journey. So, the concept is that Joseph Campbell has realized that every myth there is, from the Bible to ancient Mesopotamia, and Polynesian cultures, all of these cultures all have this same concept of this hero's journey. And when you again look at the cards, it's the same exact journey that we do in the major arcana cards. So it's that hero that's got like the heart of gold that doesn't know what to do, and then goes on like a call to adventure, initiation, and then like return home. And the major arcana is split up in these three categories as well. And so it's just interesting that myths throughout all the world and time come back to the tarot cards. And so it's a lot of fun to be able to kind of understand the hero's journey. And then it really gives you a deeper sense of, quote, the fool's journey when it comes to the tarot cards. So not only are you kind of, um, I would say, like, there's a little bit of like fortune telling or predicting the future kind of aspects and things, but it's a matter of like being able to bring those aspects into the present to figure out how do we change things up to get you on the portion of the journey that you want to be on.
Mm.
So like for example, let's say that um I might see like the death card, right? We always love talking about the
Yeah,
death
I was going
card,
to
but
ask you about the death card anyway, so bring it on.
so I might see the death card in your future, but
Hmm.
the death card is it's one of my favorite cards because it's like the death of a portion of your ego, the death of, letting go, the death of like a chapter of your life, a beginning of a new one. Well, you kind of relate that now into the present. Do you want that kind of death? Do you want to have that chapter change in your life? If you don't, then let's figure out what we need to do the present to either prevent that from happening or making that happen even faster than you want it to.
Mm.
So, and then that's how it kind of comes back then to where you are in the fool's journey of trying to get to that self-actualization side. So it's that idea of like we've got to let go of things that no longer serve you in order to get the things in that um to get to your next levels.
I love that. I love that. I
Does
love
that make
that you're
sense?
really focusing on like the path of self-development,
Mhm.
of enlightenment, if you want to call it that or whatever. But,
Exactly.
but,
Exactly.
and really thinking about like where we are on this path. But I also love how you're like, this is not your destiny, necessarily.
Mhm.
And that, if you don't want to go through that massive change or whatever in your
Mhm.
life, then let's look at your life and what is leading towards that, and then evaluate, is this something that we want to change, and how would we go about doing that? Like, I love that, because then you're empowering the person to be responsible for their own lives and not to be like a
Absolutely.
victim,
I think that.
of everything. Yeah. Oh my God, I love that so much.
Yeah, and that was one thing I kind of had a bit of a toss up when it came to like people predicting future. Is that
Mm.
I felt like people no longer have control of themselves if we're letting the universe take over. And I'm like, I never felt that that was right. Like I feel like we have our own free will,
Yeah.
but we can use the prediction of future to be able to help on what we need to change
Right.
and what we need to develop in the here and now. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And I
no, that
think
makes sense. That makes sense, because
mhm,
like we have like a path that we're on by, the energy that we're putting out there, right? Or the
mhm,
circumstances and things. And so this is most likely the scenario that's going to happen if you keep going on this path the way that you're going on this path. But you can also make changes. And you're right about the free will. I mean, come on, like, we're all talking about it.
yeah,
We're
mhm,
supposed to have this free will. So, if you're coming at it like, you're the victim and you can't change anything, or you don't have any power, then you're not taking that power for yourself to want to change like your life and be in control of your life. And I'm all for that. Like, really
mhm,
accepting like personal like accountability and responsibility for where I'm at in my life, and the things that are
mhm,
happening to me, and I know that you talk about
mhm,
manifestation, like, that we're essentially, whether or not we're consciously or subconsciously manifesting our lives, but that's what we're doing,
mhm,
and so we can
absolutely.
either continue going about it in a subconscious way, or we can choose to be very conscious and proactive about, what we're creating in our lives. And I love that you're using the tarot to do this by really looking at like, where are you right now? So is that what you do? Do you help people to figure out like, let's
Mhm,
look at, the fool's journey, or, the hero's journey here, and like, let's evaluate where you are on this journey. Do
mhm.
you do that as well?
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of do a little like past, present, and future
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing to see like where are they, where are we now in the hero's journey?
Mm.
Where are we and what are we dealing with? And then, it gives us the cards give us what's going on both on like a deeper level and a superficial level. It gives us on all these different types of levels, emotional, mental, physical, so we can really get into a good deep place of where we are right now. and then be able to figure out, okay, yeah, do I like it or not? Do I want to see something different? And I think that's where a lot of that life coaching kind of comes into play, is like,
Mm.
how can I help you figure out what you want? And, how do I help you be able to go like, no, that's not what I want for my future. And then I can use the tools that I've learned to be able to, use the cards and the life coaching to be able to get people on the path they want to be on.
Yeah, and that's so empowering too, because
Hmm.
ultimately that's what we want, right? We want to be
Right.
on, like, or at least most of us, has an like ideal path that we'd like to be on, and then to be able to have the tools to recognize, like, what you're doing right now is leading you towards this path, and
Hmm.
if you're wanting to be going towards this path, then you're going to need to reevaluate things,
Hmm.
and empower yourself. You're not a victim to circumstance that I'm just going to go this way. You can go this way. And I love how you're combining, like, all of these tools, and then along with manifestation too. I think that these are, like, really powerful, and life coaching, of course, powerful
Hmm.
tools to help to change a person's current circumstances and reality, but also, like, their perspective, and their approach in their life because of their perspective. I think that's fantastic.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so amazing when, like, my clients will come in and they might just feel super heavy and just, I mean, they've just got the weight of the world on their shoulders. And then once we come up with like a game plan, and you just see that they just stand up, stronger, and they feel more empowered, and they just feel like, they know where they're going and what the next steps are. And
Hmm.
it's like, it's just so fun to see them, you know, in an hour or so just completely change their physical body, as you notice that their mind has just completely changed too. It's like, I hope everybody that's a tarot reader gets to see, just to see that, creativity and that, change that evolves in clients. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Hmm.
So we had touched real briefly on the death card. And so I want to touch
Hmm.
on these things because I know that a lot of people, when they get readings, they're like, oh, I don't want that card because that probably means whatever. Because if I look at the card, like, it looks terrifying, do
Hmm.
these things really mean what they look like? You know?
Yeah, yeah. And I think Hollywood's done a great job with scaring us. I think that there's so many horror movies where people get that
Right?
death card. So
Yeah.
thank you, Hollywood, for messing that up. But but yeah, I mean, the death card is not something to be scared of.
Hmm.
There's other cards you might want to worry about, but not the
Yeah.
death card. Where the death card, I always say, is something where it's like our own choice. Like, we're the ones creating the changes.
Hmm.
And so we have control of the changes. That's what's wonderful about it.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there's also the tower card, which is
Hmm.
a bit harsher, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I kind of say, like, that card kind of represents where change is happening, but the universe kind of took control,
Yep.
so you no longer have control over it. And that's probably the harshest part of it,
Yeah.
is that you don't know when you're going to land. You don't know when you're going to, how you're going to land. You don't know if it's
Hmm.
going to be soft or hard, or, or are you going to land 5 minutes from now or 5 years from now? So that's where the tower card gets a bit rough. But again, it's like, you can look at things for the present and say, like, what am I not doing that the universe needs me to do?
Mm.
To
Hmm.
and and that's what, like, the tower card is. It's like the universe has had enough patience
Yeah.
to say, like, you have not been getting on your path, and now I need to get you there. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I am going to clear a very big path for you to get there, and it's going to hurt.
Yeah. No, and I love
Hmm.
that. I hate, it sounds funny to say that. I love
Yeah.
that. No, but I've had a lot of the tower card in my life, like,
Mhm.
multiple times. And you're right. And it's very much the look at, you've had so many opportunities to align yourself in your life. and you're not doing it, and it's like, how many times have you felt that feeling like, I should be doing this, I should be doing this, and you're not doing it, and you keep on choosing like the more destructive path or whatever the thing is, right? And maybe you're in a toxic situation or whatever, and you keep on like not doing it and not doing it, but you need to be doing it. And finally the universe is like, I've been sending you those messages, those feelings, that inspiration for that change, and you are not actively
Not
like
getting
doing
it.
it. So, and you need to make these changes in your life in order to move forward with the things that are in store for you, like the exciting things and the great things. So unfortunately, you've put me in a position now that I need to take control.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And the thing that I think makes it hard is when we try to control the process of the tarot card, of the tower,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like, if we just surrender to the experience of, okay, my life is going to change, and the things that need to leave in my life are going to leave. And if I allow that to happen, it's not going to be nearly as bad as if I'm like, no, I don't want this to happen, and I don't want to lose those things, and I'm super attached to all these things. And like, the more you hold those attachments and that control and that fear, then it's going to be a little rocky for you.
Yep. And then that's when you get the universal 2x4 upside the head. Yeah.
Right? Yep. Totally. Have had that too.
Yes. Yes, a few times, unfortunately.
Right?
But I kind of talk, I'll tell my clients, like when they're in that kind of, when they're just so scared and they need so much of that control and they can't give it up, I always give them the metaphor of like, how do you hold the most sand in your hand?
Mm,
You know, if you try to grab sand and you try to hold on to it as hard as you can, all the sand's going to run out and you're
right.
going to just be left with just a few little grains in your hand because of how hard you're holding on to it. But if you're able to like pick up sand and like leave it with an open palm, you can
Mm,
hold so much sand in your hands that way. So it's like you gotta give some things up at times,
yeah.
of the process in order to get to where you need to go. And that's when you're going to get the most abundance and the most, manifestation and all those things that you want. You're capable of it, but you got to do it with an open hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I think that approaching that in our lives, in general, about control, like, we are, I don't know, I mean, maybe I think I'm stereotyping here, but I feel like, as a human race, that like, we want like some sort of like control, over our lives and our circumstances and things like that. And there's also just going to always be a little bit of an element of surrender along
Hmm.
with your path of like, free will and the things that
Hmm.
you create and whatever, that there's like this balance point of, between the two of those.
Yeah, yeah. And like in the Fool's Journey, they call that like kind of like that call to adventure.
Mm,
So it's the idea of that like we know we're this fool with the heart of gold and stuff, and but we don't think we're capable of taking on this adventure. Like
mm,
what like I kind of also explain like look at like Luke Skywalker because that Star Wars is the epitome of the hero's journey,
yeah.
but if you look at like, here he is like he's like, I'm just a single man. Like
Hmm.
I can't take on, the whole empire and all that stuff. So it's like, why me? It's, it should be somebody else. Well, we take that on too, right? It's like, is that like, oh well no, that's not me to take on the universe, or it's not me to like take
Mm,
on what needs to be done. um but the more and more we get into it, the more we realize, oh, this is my path, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is exactly where I need to go. But by surrendering it, you're allowed to like, you can start seeing where you need to go.
hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and it gives you a
Mhm.
broader perspective of things too, because we get so like narrow focused in
Mhm.
things that we're not going to see, like our path, and
Mhm.
the fool's journey, or the hero's journey, in our place in that, because we're so narrow focused. I know that there's been points in my life that have been like destructive and toxic or whatever,
Mhm.
that I'm so like caught up in these things that I'm not seeing like the way out. I'm not seeing
Mhm.
the full journey or the process or whatever. So, I think it'd be really
Mhm.
nice to have had tools, to be able to, like access and figure those things out for myself. And also, like you're
Mhm.
saying about like the beginning stages of the journey, and feeling like, well, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm capable of stepping into this journey. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know that that's me, that I have the strength
Mhm.
and power to be called into like this mission,
Yeah.
and I know that I think that each, like you said, it's an archetype,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
we all
Mhm.
have this archetype, right? And we're all feeling like, the like we don't have the qualifications for whatever the thing is in our lives,
Mhm.
and I don't know where I'm going with this, but essentially, like,
Mhm.
it's so hard, when you're hitting that point in your life where you feel called to do whatever that thing is that you're feeling called to do. And at the same time, feeling like, who am I, to do these
Mhm.
things? Do you have any like advice for people when they're hitting the beginning point of their journey and feeling that
Mhm.
way?
Yeah, I mean, because I just saw a client earlier, and she has that same kind of concept of like, I want to help the world. I want to make this a better place, but I'm just one person. How am I going to do it? And I'm like, all you have to do is help one person. You
Mhm.
don't have to help the whole world, right? Because helping that one person leads to helping. Sorry, my little
It's all
Harriet
good. It's all
decides.
good. Mine's usually in here, but she's abandoned me today.
Oh. But like you can help that one person, and that person's going to help the next person in line,
Mm,
and on and on and on. And before you realize, one person has actually helped thousands, because everybody has just helped that next person in line.
mhm,
And so, it's okay to like, want to do something on a very large scale, and like have like a major foundation that's going to help get rid of cancer or something like that. Like you can do that. But if everybody just helped one person, that is part of being on our path, right? That's
mm.
part of how we need to help the helpers, and help the healers, and everything else that we meet along our path.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. No, absolutely. And one of the things that I teach is, helping people to tap into their own inner guidance. Because like when you do that, then you can hear like, or feel, or whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
that longing within you, that longing to do something in your life, and aligning with, the things that you want to do in your life. And that as you begin to listen to that guidance, it also helps to take away like the fears and insecurities or whatever, because when you align with what I call your soul voice, that part of you already knows like your journey or
Hmm.
whatever. So you don't have to know what the journey is. You just start listening and following and doing it,
Hmm.
and then you'll see you're already on your path. You're already doing
Hmm.
it. So,
Yeah, yep. And you're a higher power, your source, your universe. There's so many names for the same thing,
yeah.
but it already knows. It already knows, like how we're gonna make this world a better place. You just got to listen
Right.
to it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, no, and I kind of liken it to like a giant tapestry, right? Where the universe is
Hmm.
like aligned, like all of our purposes and our lives and our intentions like together in this beautiful tapestry, right?
Hmm.
And then it makes you wonder like, well, how do I fit into all this or whatever? And it's like, what you need to do as a part of this whole tapestry, by your own inspired action, because like
Mhm.
the universe gives you that inspiration to let you know, well, it's your turn to act. This is what
Mhm.
you need to do to play a part in that tapestry or whatever. So I always say, like, whenever you're feeling inspired action or inspiration, to do that, because then
Mhm.
that's your thread for
Mhm.
that part of tapestry or whatever. So
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, yeah. And if everybody's one of the pieces of thread in there, you
mhm.
create something really, really amazing.
Yeah, yeah. That's why
Mhm.
I love like listening to your inner guidance too, because like I have this thing it's called like holy moments. I don't know. I'm not sure about the name, but it just kind of ended up that way. But it's essentially like you're in the right place at the right time and saying and doing the right thing that that other person needs to hear or experience.
Mhm.
That because you've
Mhm.
been listening to your inner guidance is like, you need to go have a cup of coffee today or whatever. And I'll be like,
Mhm.
okay. And I'll like, all right. And then you see like this image in your mind of like the coffee shop down the street. And you're like, all right, I feel inspired to go do this or whatever. And so
Mhm.
you go down and you do that. And then you end up in line, behind this person who's having like some struggles in their life. And you end up having this conversation. And as you're listening to your inner guidance, you just allow the information to kind of flow out of you, whatever needs to be
Mhm.
said or done in that moment. And that person is receiving exactly what the universe needs them to experience, but through you,
Mhm.
as the vessel. And I just love those moments.
Yeah, yeah. So Jung calls those synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the idea of like, yeah, all of a sudden you're in the right place at the right time saying the right thing, and everything just kind of came together,
Yeah.
and yeah, and you get to realize how in line you are with the world when all that happens.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Hmm.
love that because the fact that Jung has a name for it, other cultures have a name for it. It's like this is
Hmm.
something that goes on throughout history, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yep.
like, we've got to trust these things. I mean, you would think that after all the people in the universe that have written about these and talked about these experiences, that we'd validate them more. That
Hmm.
we'd and value them more,
Hmm.
and so,
Yeah.
well, I love that. I love that. And
Yeah.
so, with the major arcana, right? And you're talking about
Hmm.
like this is the fool's journey, the hero's journey.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about this journey, and how would I know, like, is there a way for me to know where I might be on that path, um at all?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you kind of look at that. The hero's journey is really kind of made up of the three different levels.
Mhm.
The first level is like that call to adventure
Mhm.
of like realizing who's around me, who's with me, what am I capable of doing, that kind of idea. And then the second one is initiation. So this is when like the true obstacles start coming in your way,
Mm.
and you realize like, am I strong enough to continue on this journey? Am I, do I have the fortitude and resilience to be able to keep going on to this journey? Because things are getting rough now. And then you get this, return back home is the third level. So this is where, like, during the initiation, we're getting rid of, again, all the stuff that isn't serving us because of, being the hero with too much stuff on ourselves. We have to get rid of things, the guilt, the shame, the things to kind of, you know, take that off of us. And then, like I said, so the return home is the idea that like that we've learned so much about where we've been on the path that now we're coming back home, but we're wiser this time around. Like we get it this time around. And then it just kind of keeps happening over and over again. So, we could all be on, we'll say like, I'm trying to think like, the eight. So eighth is usually strength.
Mhm.
So, we might all be on this strength card of like kind of overcoming our fears and trying to like wrestle with it and trying to like take control over our fears or not letting our fears control us.
Mhm.
but you might have done this journey a few more times already. So you might have been doing this like 3 times already. So your strength's going to be different than my strength,
Mm,
So if I haven't experienced life that, very much, that it's kind of that concept of like, yeah, like with the teenagers, right? The teenagers feel like when they fight with their friend, all is gone,
right.
all is
Yeah.
lost,
Yeah. Yeah.
like no one's ever gone through this. So they're the ones that are going to have that strength to get past a breakup or something like that. Well, after our heart's been hurt a few times and like, we've been married or divorced and we're kind of coming back again, my strength is going to be different than your strength because you've experienced different, you know, different fears and stuff than I have.
Mm,
But, it's the essence is still the same.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So, I kind of tell people like, really, you just want to look at like those 3 sections. And I think right away we all know where we're at within those 3 sections.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Are we coming back around after we've been through hell and back?
mm-hmm,
Well, then we know that we're kind of coming back home.
mm-hmm,
If we're starting to be on a new adventure. So even, a new job, a new relationship, then we're on this like call to adventure, right? We're starting to get on this new fresh journey and adventure again.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we kind of know where we are within those 3 things. And then I think sometimes we need that, reader to kind of sit with us and be able to go, this is where you're at though, right
Mm.
here.
Would you say that there's also layers too? Like, let's say my
Hmm.
entire life will be the fool's journey, but then my career will have its own fool's journey. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Where so you have in
Yes.
all these layers.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you might be in a fantastic, amazing relationship that you feel is working out so well, where you might say like you're at that like world or universe card, that
Mm-hmm.
22 is like because it's like there's no ego within the relationship, like everything's just really worked out. Doesn't mean it's all, unicorns and rainbows. There's still stuff that goes on within it, but you're at a good level that the egos aren't the problem within the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could be at the office and fighting with your boss nonstop because egos are being a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Issues are still there that are unresolved.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you can be on different levels. And not to mention that, you might hit the world card, briefly and then come crashing back down too, very, in the next 5 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's such a fluid, rapid moment too that we can enjoy this these bright spots within the hero's journey, but then yeah, we can turn around and fall flat on our face too the next minute.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm,
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely,
mhm.
definitely. Well, I love that. Thank you, because that's going to make it easier for people to understand, okay, this is maybe where I am,
Mhm.
in my own journey, and then, what I can potentially, expect as a part of my journey, but also like,
Mhm.
how I can empower myself to shift, those particular things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
So I know we've spent a lot of time talking about the major arcana. I'd be curious to know more about the minor arcana and how that relates to our lives. Because I know, like, we're talking about the symbolism and archetypes, and all the different
Mhm.
things of the major. But I know that the minor also has its own symbolism and understanding.
Right. So I kind of say where the major arcana is kind of telling you where you are in your path and like where you are on, the definitely more of like the high level kind of stuff that's going on. And then the
Mm-hmm.
major or the minor arcana is kind of what's happening on the day-to-day things. The little annoyances or the little moments of gratitude, but it's the little moments that we look at in the day to day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the idea that like we could have a great, loving, fantastic relationship, but then you could also get a minor card that's saying, yeah, but I'm not liking him today, or I'm going to bury him in the backyard if he opens his mouth up one more time,
Right, totally.
you know.
Yeah.
But that also is like the human element too, right? Of
Mm, hmm.
like not everything is always perfect. And
Yeah.
so that's where the today to day things kind of come in of like, yeah, today was just a really tough day, or today was like a fantastic day and everything just was going perfectly. But then
Hmm.
you also have it on like the four different levels. So you've got it on the, on the mental, the physical, the emotional and action oriented sides. So those
Mm,
are also
hmm.
the little things that you need to be doing day to day. So
Hmm.
let's say you get like the Ace of Wands, which is saying like, okay, we need to have like, we need to um, kind of force a movement. We need to take an action. We need to do
Hmm.
something. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean we need to quit our job,
Mm,
or like, something that's really major. It doesn't mean we have to quit our job, move out of the house, and live in the country. But it could be something where like, you just have to make that phone call that you've been dreading.
mm,
Something where
hmm.
you're taking a little step towards something that you want.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's where the minor arcana cards come into place.
Is there like a journey within the minor arcana, or what is there what am I trying to say here? From the ace, all the way
Mhm.
up, or however it goes.
Yeah, yeah,
Is there, does it have its own journey, or are they individually meaning cards?
Yes, and there's a couple of different overlays when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, for the minor arcana, you've got like the Ace of Swords all the way up to the Ten of Swords, and so it kind of
Mm-hmm.
follows a lot of like the numerology
Mm-hmm.
aspect of things, of like one being, a new thing, two being pairs, on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of, oh, what's interesting about the minor cards is that like in numerology, nine is the pentacle. And then it kind of brings you back down to one, right? Because then you start
Mm-hmm.
adding numbers together. I don't know if you're
Right. Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
into
Mm-hmm.
numerology or anything. But yeah, so they kind of take that numerology level of like, where we're going up, we kind of might hit an obstacle, we kind of go up a little bit, and so we're kind of going up to that pinnacle of the nine, with some stumbling marks in there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so in a sense, it does still have a journey within itself. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're not familiar with the cards at all, but let's say you pull like four stones or pentacles, they're
Mm-hmm.
depending on what deck you have. They could be coins, pentacles, or stones. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but let's say you pull a four. So in numerology, that kind of represents like stability and like a
Mm-hmm.
stronghold. Like, so you kind of imagine like, a house built with like four posts kind of idea, that's going to be
Right.
pretty stable. So then you can also take it as if we're talking about stones or pentacles, it talks about like our physical life, or both financially and material wise. So it's saying that
Mm-hmm.
like we're in a stable place when it comes to either money. So without knowing anything about the cards, you can learn about what um, what things mean based on numerology alone,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and follow that
Gotcha.
path. Yeah, yeah.
And then what about when you're getting into, like the queen and the page and all those
Mhm.
things? What does that signify?
Yeah. So those signify like either the people around us that are helpers, or healers. I mean, they can be both. A helper can still be a herder, unfortunately, because sometimes they have to
Mm,
kick us across have to flick us across the room to get us doing what we need to. But they can be helpers or herders, or it could be like a representation of like who we are, or our shadow side even.
mm,
Where it's like we can see, like I'm trying to think of a so like if you get um like a prince or a son of swords, right? So swords
mm-hmm,
represent like the mental aspect. So you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of look like it as a prince, or some might call it knight or knave, or, there's, again, depending on what deck, but so you figure that it's like a lower level than the king. So it's kind of showing that, um, so it's a lower level of our mental thought process. So we ought to kind of see, is this
Mm.
within us? Like, are we thinking kind of narrowly?
Mm-hmm.
Where we're not thinking as high as a king kind of level or a queen level? Or is somebody in there that's helping us kind of cut away some things? And in which case, are they cutting away things at a lower level or at a high level?
Mm-hmm.
On like at a physical plane or like on a very spiritual plane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it gets
Yeah,
really
no, that makes.
complicated.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of aspects to it, and I know that I've been told, like, it takes many years to like fully, digest, and being able to use like a tarot deck effectively. So I was interviewing someone recently, and one of her perspectives. I think a lot of people have a lot of different perspectives on this.
Yeah,
But her perspective is very interesting. She's like, when you buy your deck, dump out the book that comes with it and start making your own associations with that. Now,
yes.
I'm torn on this, because on one hand I'm like 100%, yeah, totally do that, but on the other
Hmm.
end there are definitely a lot of like common symbols and symbolism, and that's why they're on there, right? The
Hmm.
symbols that are on the tarot are there because they
Hmm.
cross many cultures and ideas and
Yeah.
understandings about things and come down to like a basic framework. So what's your perspective on all of that?
Yeah, kind of a little bit of both actually, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like I agree, like sometimes a card comes up and I might be seeing the symbol within the card.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think of an example, but like the sun card. So the sun card is like all about like this renewed freshness, like growth, all of this great things, right? But on it, I might see something, I might not read it as the sun card or refresh newness or something like that. I might see a symbol that's on it. So, like on my deck, what I see is a red rose. So that red rose to a lot of people means like a passionate love relationship, but all that kind of stuff. But for me, a red rose represents my mom. My mom was,
Mm.
obsessed with red roses. So I might look at it and say, like, hey, what's going on with mom? Like, are we having to
Mm-hmm.
help her? Or like. And so, yeah, any other reader would look at that and go, where did you get mom from that?
Mm.
But that,
Mm-hmm.
but that's because that's my symbol. And I think
Yeah.
we all need to learn what our symbols are. And
Yeah.
then that card can represent what the book says it is, or it can represent during a reading, it can be what that symbol represents for us and like, how we interpret it. So I agree with like, I think you need to read a little bit about the book, to kind of
Mm-hmm.
get a gist. But then at some point you do have to throw it away. And which is funny is that that's the name of my one of my classes, tarot classes, is throw the book and pick up the intuition. So it's funny because
Nice. Yeah, I
it's
love
funny that
that.
people say that. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's important to learn about symbols, but really the symbols is your connection with it.
Yeah.
And what it means to you. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's
Yeah.
that's where it gets a little complicated when we talk about like interpreting dreams and things like that, because the symbols that you dreamt about is going to be different because of what it means to you.
Yeah.
So like I
Yeah.
remember
Oh
like,
yeah. No. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I mean, like I remember having like this dream when my brother was like living in India for a year, and I kept having dreams about him getting decapitated. I mean, it was really
Oh.
pretty scary,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
young girl thinking that your brother's gonna die kind of idea.
Right.
But then when I realized, like through myths and the tarot and everything like that, you realize, oh, like decapitation is kind of a symbol for like cutting off your brain and like kind of being more in the
Mm.
moment and like just kind of doing things more from the heart and less from the mind. And, when I told that to my brother, he was like, that's exactly what I was doing in India. He was like, at some point you had to give up this mind part and just be in the moment and just like feel it from the heart. And so, yeah, but I mean, other people are going to look at capitation differently than I did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
Mhm,
yeah. No, and that's
mhm,
what's one of the things that I teach too. It's like you need to build your own symbol dictionary. Like I'm not
yes.
an advocate for like the symbol dictionaries that are out there because I
Hmm.
mean, granted they have some
But it's a
valuable
good
stuff, but
basis.
most
Yeah.
most times like you're saying the imagery for ourselves is going to be very different than someone else. I mean, if
Hmm.
you look at someone who like you look at the symbol of a snake for an example, like for some people that's going to be a really traumatic thing, whereas other
Hmm.
people maybe who cultivate and raise them are going to be like, I love them, they're little
Hmm.
poopers, and right, and they're going to have a very different like experience with them. And so it's like you really have to develop this like symbol dictionary for yourself, because this is
Hmm.
the way that the universe uses to communicate with you and through you, is through your own symbolism. So if you don't
Hmm.
have like your own symbol dictionary, if you haven't really thought about like the symbols that are important to you, like the red rose and like all these things,
Hmm.
then you're missing out on opportunities for communication, for knowing. So like we were talking earlier about like the red hoodie and stuff like that, like
Hmm.
if you're receiving like information about a red hoodie and like you're reading for yourself. I mean, it's different when you're reading for someone else, you
Yeah.
just say it,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're reading for yourself, you want to know like what these things are and what meaning they have. And if you're just like, red hoodie, I don't know what that means or whatever,
Hmm.
then there's no ability to receive that information for yourself because you have no reference point. And
Hmm.
so yeah, and so that those symbols really really help. And
Hmm.
again, reading in the tarot and looking at those things, like yeah, you're going to want to know like the foundation of the creation of these cards, and why they were
Hmm.
made, to represent this particular journey or these particular things. But then after that, you're going to want to tap into your own intuition, because the point is to access, that in that intuition, that higher information, and using that tool to be able to
Hmm.
access those things, as well as like what you're doing, which is helping them along their journey through the process of that tarot. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why there's so many decks out there too, right? Is
Mm,
that because
mm,
there's so many decks that are gonna, um, incite a feeling, within you, and it might be something different than me, So that's
mm.
why my deck feels like it's the most perfect deck that's ever been done for me, even though
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
the only one that reads these, right? Or right,
Right, right.
but that's how I felt like it was really just these were all drawn for just me because the symbols and the pictures and everything that
Mm,
on it, it just feels like it's just made for me. But you're not going to feel that way on my deck. You might look at it going like,
right.
I don't like the artistry, I don't like any of that. But that's because your
Mm,
symbols are different than my symbols.
mm,
You want
so,
to, the way your higher self speaks to you is going to be on a different sense of signs than it is on my deck.
right.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And so what would you advise, or give, advice to people for like picking out their own deck? How are they going to know like what's a good deck for them?
I tell people to like go to any metaphysical bookstore because everybody should be really, well versed on how this is going to work. But grab yourself a cup of coffee and just sit in a shop and just look at all these cards, and actually ask this
Mm,
deck, like, grab without knowing what any of these cards mean, or maybe you do, but like ask the deck, is this the right deck for me? And pull a card out. I mean, you'll be able to see the sense of like, is this feel positive? Does this feel negative? Is this feel like growth? Does it feel like, you can kind of tell just by the artistry, like if
mm,
this feels right, And let's say you get something that just doesn't look right. It seems chaotic. It just doesn't feel right. We'll go to the next deck and play
Mm-hmm.
with that deck and then ask it the same question, so it does take time, and I think that's part of why so many people have like 50 million decks, is because like they get connected with each of them, but then sometimes they're
Yeah.
like, oh, that felt good for then, it doesn't feel right for me
Mm.
now, and that's okay,
Right.
we grow. So but just ask the deck, they'll always tell you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah. 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 And you're true. It's like so many times, like we may be in a certain place in our lives too that we're resonating with a specific type of energy and
Hmm.
frequency, and so we're aligned with a particular deck, at that point in our lives. But as we're shifting and growing and going through our own,
Hmm.
fool's journey, right? And so now
Exactly.
we're in a different part of that journey, and
Hmm.
we're aligning with different frequencies and energies, and so we may need a very different deck, or even just that day, right? That
Yeah.
particular day we're vibing in a different way or whatever, and we need, or that particular deck, or if we're using
Hmm.
oracle cards or whatever too,
Yeah.
that just aligning with whatever energies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're human beings that constantly change and flux, and that's a good
Mm-hmm.
thing. That's why we're here on this earth. But yeah, so that also means that that's why, we can change our mind when it comes to cards as well, is that sometimes they'll feel great and sometimes they don't. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
So
yeah.
there's for when there's, what am I trying to see? There's a couple of things I'm trying to ask at the same time, so my brain's like, wah. Okay, so let's talk about like reading for yourself versus reading for others, and then as we get into reading
Mhm.
for others, the ethics of that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's really good. So, yeah, I think reading for ourselves, I think, is harder. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why I kind of say, like, in the beginning, when people learn about the cards, like, I really recommend, like, kind of studying symbols, learning your symbols for yourself, kind of learning the basics of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
But then find a group that you can, or a class, or something like that, where you can read for each other. Because then that's going to help
Mm.
you kind of understand more. And like, especially where a class where you can actually say, does this sound right? Is this you? Or, and somebody on the other side can say, like, that's not me, but this is, And so you can kind of work together. So I think it's really important to kind of work in a group to be able to learn how to read, because it's so much harder to read for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, when it comes to reading for other people, like for example, I do not see a physical death in somebody. So I will
Mm-hmm.
not, I can't look at you and say, oh, from the cards, you've got 3 weeks. Good luck on that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that shows a lot of arrogance too, to say
Yeah.
that you can see somebody's death. And that's something that should be sacred between them and their creator. You should not
Yeah.
be a part of that. So
Yeah.
not seeing death, I think, is really kind of the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there too is like, you don't want to give readings about other people. So
Mm-hmm.
I do get people to come in that says like, "Oh, can you tell me how my ex is doing?" Well, sorry, but
Mm.
your ex didn't give me permission to look in on
Yeah.
on their life. So that kind of gets to that ethical dilemma, because you've given me permission to look into your life, but they didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
choice. So I
Right. It's a
really say,
violation
like,
of their privacy. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So that kind of gets a little conflicted, and so I kind of usually try to redirect things like, why do you want to know? Like, why is it your business? Like,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
what are you lacking within yourself that you're still concerned with their life, kind of idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and then we can
Yeah.
kind of work at that direction. But
Gotcha.
yeah, those are
Gotcha.
my two big ethical things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if a person is getting interested in doing readings either for themselves or, someone else, what is the process of reading? And is there like, is there a process of preparing for the reading and then doing the reading? And then is there a process for closing out a reading? Like, how does one do all that?
Hmm. So I think I am probably the least person you'll ever find when it comes to rules. So I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
there's a right or wrong when it comes to any of that. Now, you know, for example, like I'll just grab my deck and start shuffling and do a reading like anywhere, anytime, you know, if they
Mm-hmm.
want me to, kind of idea. Where like I've got a friend that needs to pull out like her very special velvet, you know, tablecloth and has to have the specific um you know, crystals out to like help her and all that stuff. And so neither is right or wrong. It's just a matter of like
Yeah.
what each other prefers. Like, you know, I don't look at the cards, you know, or I should say, I look at them differently than that she does. And that's okay. There's no
Mm-hmm.
rules about it. There's nothing special, you know, that you have to do specifically. But if that makes you feel like a better reader because of it, then please do it. You
Right.
know, but I think everybody kind of does have like the gist of where the other person needs to shuffle the cards.
Mm-hmm.
And so like so kind of getting their energy into the cards. So you're reading for them and not the person before or not reading for yourself. Like it's reading for
Mm-hmm.
them by getting the energy. So I think most people kind of agree on that aspect. Or like
Mm-hmm.
when I'm doing it long distance like via Zoom, it's like, you know, I'm really focusing while I'm shuffling, I'm focusing on them. So it's not a reading
Mm-hmm.
about me, you know. So I
Mm-hmm.
think most people have that kind of, and again, I don't want to say a rule, but guidance
Yeah.
on
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that makes
But
sense.
yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, but I was gonna say like it, but you're gonna have to figure out what works for you and what makes you feel like you're a better reader because of doing that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so for example, like for me too, when I get the cards back, I cut them in threes, and I kind of do a mother, maiden, crone kind of, you know. So I kind of ask the three stages of a woman to kind of come in and help me. So the three stages of a goddess to come in and help me with that. To say like, you know, mother, maiden, crone, can you please help me with this
Mm-hmm.
reading? Not everybody's going to be associated with the, you know, the triple goddess concept.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. And I
Hmm.
think that's important. And I think one of the ways that I think about it is like whatever you need to
Hmm.
create that environment.
Yeah.
So if you're able to just like pull it together with nothing
Hmm.
and you're already like mentally, emotionally, psychologically, energetically, spiritually in the place and ready to go, then great, then you don't
Hmm.
need anything, you don't need the extra
Hmm.
steps or whatever. But if you need the steps to kind of pull your consciousness into that place where you're accessing the information, then think of it like a ritual. You know, these
Yes.
all these things are that ritual for you to help to create that environment. But it can also be a ritual for the person that you're reading because it helps to pull them into that sacred place too. So, but then again, you're
Hmm.
going to attract the type of clientele that are attracted to your process because,
Hmm.
like I said, if you're, oh, I already got it and it's already there, then you're going to attract the people that don't need that process.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you need the process, you're more likely to attract people that also need that process and need to be a part of
Hmm.
that because you're energetically aligning. So, and
Hmm.
then, yeah, I love that as far as like, what is it that you need to call in and assist you? Like, do you call in the universe? Do you call in your
Hmm.
guides? Do you not call in any of those
Yeah.
things? Do you just, whatever your process is? And I
Hmm.
love this about the way that you do it because there's no rules. The
Hmm.
only rules are the rules that you need for yourself, and they don't have to be rules. They're just
No.
like your own way,
Hmm.
and whatever your way is the perfect way to do it, and I
Absolutely.
think that that's not said enough, that whatever your way is the right way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think uh, to get on a little bit of a religious tangent, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
because there's
Mm-hmm.
so much dogma that has been created with religion, that you have to do
Yeah.
all of these certain things, you have to pray a certain way, you have to do things a certain way. You don't have that in the tarot. Like, you don't have all of these set dogmas that somebody has come down from a higher, level, that has come down and said, no, you've got to do it this way. You know, that's the
Mm-hmm.
beauty of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
bringing things back to our own self. It's our own way of reading. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. So as we start coming to a close in our talks, I'm really curious, like, just kind of what advice you have for people, as not only as they're approaching into working with the tarot, but also into like addressing like their own process with the hero's journey, the fool's journey, and all of that as well. So what kind of like last thoughts and words would you have and guidance for these
Mhm.
particular things?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I can tell people is just get a deck, just play,
Mm-hmm.
just enjoy them for what they are, because everybody can read. It's not just for, specific people that were born with a gift or whatnot. We can all learn it, and we can all utilize the like the what am I trying to say? See, now here, there goes my brain. But
Yeah, yeah,
we
it's
can,
okay. I'm right there with you.
but we can all utilize its guidance no matter where we
Yeah.
are. And so just get a
Mm-hmm.
deck and play with it. But then I say, don't grab a bunch of tarot books either. Like, you can
Mm.
read one book on it, but then look into psychology, look into Jung, look into Joseph Campbell, look into the history of the occult, look into all these kind of different books outside of just a tarot book, to be able to help you
Mm.
start matching concepts with cards, matching, like the hero's journey with cards, and like what stage and all that. But I don't think you can do it until you've kind of developed this hero's journey within yourself. And so,
Mm.
just keep reading and growing and learning, but do it not just with tarot cards, do it with everything else outside of it too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then
I love that.
practice. Yeah, practice, 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 right? Like, just get the group together, get a group together, get a class together of just people that are open-minded and that can do this with each other, to be able to like have like that honest communication of going like, yeah, that's where I'm at right now in the world. And thank you. But we can all do this. We
Mm-hmm.
can all benefit from it. And we need to make this mainstream. We need to make the cards mainstream so everybody can utilize it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I
Hmm.
agree. I agree. I mean, these things, these tools and your intuition, all these things are a natural part of you. They're things
Hmm.
that you can do. And so, like, don't be afraid to use these tools,
Hmm.
because you're going to find that they're going to access like a part of you that is just innately there. You know, you
Yeah.
have the ability to do these things.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
if someone is interested in working together with you, how would they reach you, and what would that look like, to have a session with you?
Yeah, so people can find me on tarotreadingsbyrachel.com, or of course any social media. So is still Tarot Readings by Rachel. So
Okay.
you can find me there. And I also want to put a little discount code out for everybody who's listening to your podcast today. But if they type in Soul Alignment, all one word, they can get 20% off for a reading with me. And that can
I
be
love
done either
it.
if you're in the Denver area, you can come to the office and we can do it in real person, or we can always do it via Zoom, which is just as effective. And yeah, and we go through this whole kind of concept of where you are now, where do you want to go, and all the different steps it's going to take to get you there.
I love it. I love it. It's so exciting. I mean, I can. it seems like such an exciting thing to go through, to be like, to find out, okay, this, and to validate, this is where I'm at, in my life and in my journey. And then to find out, like, I have the capacity to empower myself to choose a particular part of my journey that I want to go, and how to shift from where I am now to where I want to be. Like, I love that, because
Mhm.
you're empowering people to do these things. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on today and having this time with me. I really value and appreciate you and our time together. And I just want to thank you. This has been
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you so much for doing this and sending this, our discussions to the rest of the world too, so everybody can hear this. So thank you for so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.